It is 6:30. I call this meeting to order on January 22nd, 2024. That's going to take a while to get used to. Any changes, additions to the agenda?
I don't have any.
I'm kind of thinking, well, looking at the agenda, the 24-25 calendar is in the superintendent report, but are we also going to discuss it?
Yeah, we should.
Okay. You want to just
Yep.
discuss where it is, or?
Yep, and then you can make a decision and action under actions if you want.
Okay.
Or motions.
Any from the peanut gallery? Okay. Approval of the minutes. Anyone has read it? And again, it's rather long minutes this time.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of, okay, well, any changes, comments, discussion about last month's minutes? The only comment I had, it was rather long. Didn't run over.
I know, you did a good job.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Okay. It passes unanimously. And I can shut that. Open my contract. Public participation, announcements. Public comment is not legally required, but we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns over issues. Through these meetings, our board models for our students how to conduct public discourse, and that the board and members of our community can approach controversial issues in a civil and constructive manner and demonstrate mutual respect. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed for discussion. Please start by identifying yourself and what town you reside in. Any public participation and or announcements? I'm sure what I saw in public.
Thanks, Matt.
Colleen.
Looking for my button. I just wanted to quickly mention that our Heartland School Board has an opening and we're running out of time for the petition to get filled out. So if there's anybody out there, it's a great time over here. Thank you.
Also, I know that this week that on Thursday, the high school, they have their science project.
Science fair and their
Science fair.
capstones.
And in the afternoon, the seniors or juniors?
Senior capstones.
Senior capstones, they have. So for those who are interested in just coming by and participating, that sounds like a real fun day. It's good.
I'd have to say the ice at ABS is frozen over. Got to watch Daniel skating for real for the first time.
That's cool.
Okay. Administrative report.
All right. Tracy's going to start.
I thought so.
Yep.
But I'm handing it off to you.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Let me bring up my screen here. Okay.
Yep.
All right. All right. First off, I just want to say thank you to everybody who filled out the survey. I'm going to share some of your anonymous responses as we scroll through this, but also just wanted to start, and please feel free, anybody jump in anytime with any questions, comments, or anything else. I also recognize it's a busy time of year, like every time of the year seems to be. But again, thank you to everybody who did complete that survey. Okay, so just to start, some updates, some spotlights. A couple great things I want to mention. One was that today was the first restorative practices official training that we had with Windsor Middle School students. We had 12 students show up, and they're going to be returning every month to have to work with the Greater Falls Community Justice Center, who is helping to, or who's leading these trainings. So the hope is that by the end of these 5 sessions, that these students are equipped with the skills to be able to actually facilitate circle conversations, community building, as a great practice. And what was cool is it's a mix of grades. So we had 6th grade, 7th graders, and 8th graders all part of that training. So we're doing it. We're doing it. I feel like people have been talking about restorative practices for years, and we are starting to actually do it. And we're also going to be meeting with teachers too. So there's going to be some opportunities for staff before the end of the school year too, which is great. So that's what you're seeing on the left-hand side. This was a flyer that I made up for working with Windsor Middle School. So the second half of that is the restorative practice training. I'm also going to be there on the second Mondays of the month because there are so many students who want to do something. So we're going to be working with them to create bulletin boards and to help get some themes integrated into advisory group, lots of cool stuff. We're going with the students' energy, and they're awesome. The next thing that y'all are seeing on the slide on the right-hand side, this is a pamphlet. It's a pocket guide for how to interrupt harmful, hateful things that are said. Maybe it's bias or microaggressions. This is something that now has been shared with Heartland, which also sounds like this is something that Heartland has used in the past, and Albert Bridge. And so it's just a way of thinking about if you hear somebody say something that you don't really understand, you think maybe there was something harmful in that, ask a question, right? Like that's what we're focusing on. How do we ask questions? Continue to be in relationship, give people an opportunity to talk through all this. Anyway, it's a guide for interrupting, super handy pocket guide, working on integrating that in the schools. A couple other updates. One, just a teacher spotlight, what you're seeing on the right-hand side there. An art teacher from Wethersfield wants to do some multicultural art classes this spring. And so I'm working with her, that's Lisa Robarts, to talk about what's the best way to talk about appreciation and appropriation of art and culture with middle school students. So pretty cool, wanted to highlight that. On the left-hand side, March Intensive Windsor High School students get to pick something to engage with. So I offered an opportunity to explore the African American Heritage Trail in Vermont as part of that learning experience in March. So we'll see if students sign up for that. The other thing, big shout out to Brittany, right? We're in the hiring process right now, hiring the new Windsor elementary principal. And so we are actively integrating ways to be more equitable, inclusive in the hiring practice, sort of as we are doing the hiring practice. So things like setting folks up with different rubrics, like ways to try and mitigate for the biases that we bring in. And anyway, just big shout out to Brittany and the ways that she's working on integrating this. And I know that there also, like Christine and me and a few other folks have met once so far, but we're meeting again to really look at and help capture some of the things that we're doing around hiring and retention over time. So just pause. Yes, I'll pause there. Yes.
I just wanted to ask regarding this rubric, was this something that was pulled together by Brittany? And it's wonderful. I can't read it all, but I'm seeing bits and pieces of it. And the other piece is this something that you will be integrated moving forward as your excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the hope. Yeah.
Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, everyone else who participated.
Yeah. So we're gonna at the end of the process figure out, what worked, what can we continue to grow over time. So, but yeah, again, yeah, big shout out to Brittany for just taking it and being like, we're gonna do this and integrating it as we're doing it. Cool. All right, thanks, Rebecca. Anything else to add here about spotlights, highlights, hiring, anything? Okay. All right. Well, we are going to get into a little bit of and here was it just organized again by that theory of change, thinking about what's happening that's serving the institutional, cultural, and individual level. So just another way of organizing some of the things that are happening. Okay.
Thank you, Tracy. I do want to say that this, really helps when you look at institutional, cultural, and individual. It really brings back and helps clarify something. So thank you for this.
Yeah, thank you for that feedback. And you'll keep seeing this unless I hear from folks who don't want to see it anymore. But thank you, Rebecca. All right. So now let's get into this, talking about just picking two terms for now, diversity and inclusion, also realizing that these are two words that aren't yet defined in any of our policies. So they're not yet in existence in any of our glossaries. So we might want to, I'm just noting that. I know Christine and I have talked about that. So at some point we may want to, maybe it's in updating the anti-racism policy, we might want to think about what we include in terms of definitions. So just want to make a note of that. I am going to share some of what you all shared in the survey. Again, it was anonymous. So just for the purpose of, really what the purpose of this is to note that probably anywhere you go, if you're in a room full of people, as many people as you're in the room full of, and you were to ask them all, like, do you have a definition for diversity? You would probably get as many different definitions as there are people in the room, right? Same with inclusion. Maybe next time we're actually going to look at equity and equality. But that's part of the complexity of doing this work, right? As complicated as it is to do the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, it's also complicated by the fact that we have very different understandings of what these words are. So the point of going over the terms isn't to find like the right one, it's to find some agreement in this group over time of what we think they mean. Because that's what's most important, right? And it's also why this work is always evolving, right? Because the board is going to change. You're going to have other folks come into the board, like maybe they have different ideas about what diversity is, right? So anyway, it's just, I know there's some complicated things with policies, and once we put it in the policy, do we revisit it every time there are new board members? But the point is that this work is, it's important, right, to keep it evolving based on the group and the people who are working on this work together, and for us to have a shared understanding of what these words mean. That's the main part. So I asked you all in the survey about how do you define diversity? How do you define inclusion? What's the relationship between these two things? And also what makes inclusion possible? There were a couple other questions in there as well. So first, we'll take a look at diversity. So here are some of the things that you all describe diversity as being: the breadth and depth of empirical cultural human experience. Diversity for me is everyone, every culture, every orientation, every religion, every spoken language, every differing ideas, every age, and on and on. Inclusion of different races, cultures, genders in a group, organization, or community, differences that give you perspectives. For me, population, different backgrounds, race, gender, sexuality, socioeconomics, age, nationality, ability, political perspective, full melange of characteristics, traditions, thought, state of being, diverse, variety. Okay, I'll pause there. Anybody notice anything about these definitions?
They're all different.
Yeah, they're all different, right? Which is kind of nice, right? It's like they are as diverse as the word of diversity is. I'm gonna offer you a way of thinking about diversity. This doesn't mean, again, this isn't the right way of thinking about it, but it is a lot of what you all said, right? To think about diversity as being the full range of differences, similarities, visible and non-visible, that make each individual unique, right? So there are some things that we can see, maybe some things we don't. I know that's a little bit ableist to think about seeing. Maybe there's some things we experience about somebody or we don't, right? But this idea of the iceberg, that We're not always getting the full range of someone or something. But diversity basically, what I used to work with somebody who said diversity is all the things. Diversity is all the things. Thank you, Melinda, for sharing that. It's like, it can be all the things, right? And so I'll just pause there for a second. How does that land for you all? Thinking about diversity in this way, it's the full range of all these things that can be differences, maybe they're shared, that make us all unique. And if you think back to like the, when we talked about intersectionality, right? And the work that some of you did reflecting on different aspects of our identity, right? All of those can be thought, those can be ways that diversity shows up, right? And you named some of those in your list.
One of the things that as I'm exploring plant-based diets, that I'm realizing is that in order for us to be healthy, we need a diverse range of foods. I mean, one is not going to do it. I mean, not that one won't be good, but if you just eat broccoli and that's all you eat, you're not gonna get the full range of things that you really need to do for your body to live up to its complete potential. So I as I was reading this information, I'm thinking, there it is, diversity. I mean, it's this gamut, that really gives you a much broader picture.
I love that. I love that. That makes me think of, I think it was in Peru, like over time, there were like hundreds and hundreds of diversity, like of potatoes that were grown, right? And it was like, and it also means that if one thing is susceptible to certain conditions, right, then you have all the rest that can continue to flourish. Right. So I love the way that you're thinking about it in terms of health and yeah, what it offers, which is also a great segue into the next part, right? It's like diversity can be this thing that can show us what's possible, right? It's this whole range of things that actually contribute to our own health and vitality in lots of different ways. And I wanted to offer you all just a few examples of how this might look, and one that fits within the educational context. So there was some research, it's linked in the slides that I've shared, where if a student, they look to see like if a student K through 12 had one teacher who looked like them throughout their K-12 experience, they were 13% more likely to go to college. Okay, and so looking like them, it could be by race, maybe gender, like some expression of that one teacher who looked like them. I think in this case, they were looking more at race. If they had two teachers who looked like them throughout their K-12 experience, they were 32% more likely to go to college. Why is this, right? It's like, if you think about it in some ways, especially when you think about students, like think about our SU and students who may not have teachers who look like them, right? There are different expectations on students. Specifically in this case, like maybe white teachers aren't expecting as much from Black students for lots of different reasons. Maybe there are biases that are present there, but they're not expecting as much from them. So maybe those students aren't going to actually fulfill their life's potential, right? Because people aren't believing in what's possible for those students. So again, in this scenario, it was like just having two teachers. So if you're a Black student who's going through school and you happen to have two teachers who look like you're 32% more likely to go to college, according to these studies. Not only that, but they also found, like, again, in these studies that students, all students, no matter, like, regardless of their race, had favorable perceptions of teachers of color. Part of that can be because of their lived experience. Maybe there's a way that they were relating to students in different ways. But essentially what this is just saying, it's like having that presence, right? The presence of somebody who looks like you is enough to propel you into a trajectory that might not have been possible before. Again, the links to these studies are in the slides if you want to check them out. There are a few different sources for those. And I think there's some ongoing work around this too.
And I think that also goes to if you have individuals that are disabled, how many How many
Absolutely.
teachers in our SU roll into the classroom in a wheelchair
Mhm.
or with crutches or with a limp? Or, I mean, those are visible,
Yeah.
but with other sort of disabilities, I don't think there are any.
Yeah.
There are?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Not a lot, though.
Yeah.
Well, and there was a teacher I was talking to today who said how much of an impact it makes when she talks about, right, having ADHD, right, to students, and students can then say like, oh wow, like you are this person who I look up to, who's sharing this experience with me that I connect with, I can relate to, you know, it definitely makes a difference. Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to keep on scrolling through. Also, there's lots of research about the benefits of diversity on teams. A number of you pointed this out in your survey. Diverse teams, when they're managed for diversity, actually make smarter, faster decisions. They can be more innovative because you have so many different perspectives present, right? And if everybody is able to contribute, you actually make smarter, faster decisions in more diverse groups. So again, it's like the benefits of diversity. It shows us what's possible, and all of this is possible, right, with diversity. So more to dig into there. I also added a slide here just to share where this word shows up in our policies, where it shows up in the equity policy, shows up in the anti-racism policy. Again, just noting that we probably want to have a shared definition for diversity in here. Okay. All right. I'm gonna keep just rolling because I've got like 4 minutes. Keeping track. But please jump in at any point. Inclusion, again, as many different definitions as there are folks who contributed to the survey. Some range in thinking around. Well, maybe I'll let you all check out the slide. In the interest of time, I'm going to offer you a way of thinking about inclusion, and then we can see if this connects with some of the ways that y'all were thinking about it. So I'd like to offer this definition of inclusion being an environment that engages multiple perspectives, differing ideas, individuals from different backgrounds to help define organizational policy practice, help shape organizational culture. I asked one question in like what makes inclusion possible? And so what do you all think somebody might need in order to help define organizational policy practice, shape culture? What does somebody need to have in order to be able to contribute to that?
Oh, they need to have voice,
Yes.
an opportunity to express.
Yes. They need to have voice for sure. Anything else y'all think they might need? All right, I'm going to run with voice, and I'm going to offer there's something about, well, I'm going to share this with you. There's an image. This is an image of all dogs sitting around a table, and it says, meanwhile, at today's meeting on feline healthcare. What do you notice about this?
Is this pulled from the national government in the U.S.?
This was not, but it may have been connected to some other image. I don't know if folks saw that years ago. But what do you notice about this image?
No cats.
There are no cats. There are no cats, yet these dogs are making decisions about feline healthcare. Okay. So, a question for you: what would make this inclusive? What would need to change about this image in order for this to really represent inclusion?
Cats.
One cat, like would one cat make it inclusive?
No.
Why
It
not?
would be a start, I think.
Yeah, it could be a start. And you also, I mean, can one cat represent all cats?
No.
Which sometimes, right? That's what happens sometimes, right? People are asked to represent a whole group of people as one person. So one cat probably wouldn't make this inclusive. What would?
A lion?
Yeah, maybe different kinds of cats, right? Maybe different kinds of cats, but like more cats at the table. And the cats would have to have some sort of voice, and not just voice, but they have to have some kind of power, right? The cats, because you could have 3 cats at this table, and the dogs say, okay, you're at our table now. We've made all the rules. You're just here to like go along with what we're doing, right? And the cats don't have any power. If they don't have any power, it's going to be hard for them to influence anything around the culture, identity, all of that. I know we are pretty much at time, but this is just another way of thinking about inclusion is really not just about having a seat at the table, but it's about feeling like your voice has some sort of power and influence over the decisions that are being made. This is a way that I'll bring back. I mean, this isn't the only time that we're going to be talking about diversity and inclusion. This will come back and back. But I think that for me, I know the more I started to think about inclusion, not just being about everyone, but it's looking about who has the most experience to speak to something that they're likely dealing with as part of their lived experience, right? And then how do they have some sort of power and influence because they likely know what's best for them. So anyway, I think I'm going to pause there. There wasn't much else to share, but just a way again of thinking about inclusion is not about assimilation. It's about having some sort of power and voice. Okay. So I think
It reminds me of John Brown when he was in the North planning to free the slaves. There wasn't a single Black person at the table.
Mhm.
So he was telling them what they needed instead of including them.
yeah, instead of asking them, right? So we see this happen a lot. It's just something for us to continue to think about. Inclusion, like the transgender policy, right? Having people who have that lived experience to weigh in, it can help inform how we think about policies. How are the people who are most impacted, who have the most knowledge about something or lived experience, how are they not just contributing, but how are they somehow helping to either lead or be, again, have that voice in influence and power somehow. Okay.
Also,
Yeah.
we'll be touching on English learners policy. That's
Yeah.
another really important one. If you don't know the language, no one is. I mean, we can have all these policymakers at the table determining whether we should have a teacher, an English language teacher, and we can say, well, we don't have it in the budget. But for those students who do not know the language and who struggle, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's so important to have those voices, or someone that at least can, bring them up at the table.
Totally. Well, thank you all for rolling through that. Sorry, Bill, I think we went over 2 minutes, but I will thank y'all. I'll pass it back.
Thanks, Tracy.
You're doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
She really is very fortunate
Yeah.
to have her. Okay. I'm going to share my screen now. Let's get to the top. There it is. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tracy. I think the work that she's doing is so important, but it feels like we're making some headway, which is good.
Yes.
Which is very good. Okay. I brought you 2 procedures tonight. Full disclosure, I grabbed the February in the board work plan. These are February's, so I'll bring January's back next month. Just grabbed the wrong ones. But these are the ones that have been in the portal. So the Title I parent and family engagement, which is really spelled out in their checklist in the policy. It's a 34-page document. So the procedure is just that the federal grants manager is going to follow those checklists, which Angie is on top of. She's our federal grants manager. And the other procedure is travel reimbursement, which is spelled out. So I don't know if there are questions on those, but pretty cut and dry. Okay. All right, I am bringing you results from the December, January. I did extend it because we didn't get a huge response this time on the question of the month, which was about engagement. So we did get, I'm clicking the wrong screen. My apologies. Got it in 2 places. So the question of the month from December and January was about engagement and how families like to be engaged. So we only had 28 responses, which is the lowest that we've had so far in our questions of the month. They were from all the different schools. Grade level was mostly pre-K 5 who answered, and we do find that we get a lot of attendance at our K 5 family nights or community dinners, etc. So that made sense. Most of the people that filled out the survey have attended family community events from the year. And then I summarized the comments, which I think are pretty important. There were lots of positive comments about the community dinners. People really appreciated having dinner paired with another event, because we know how hectic it is for families to feed their kids and get out of the house at night. So people really appreciated that. There were some other suggestions on what we might want to do. So I'll just read them to you. Student music, such as garage bands, student-led singing groups, instrumental recitals. That was a request for that. A reading or math event led by students, something that focuses on DEI issues. A gift exchange for 60-year-olds. Somebody from the community put that in there, which I thought was pretty neat. A full school activity night.
So specific.
Yeah, but maybe it's a need, you know?
I have to wait for a year to do that.
Yeah. Are you gonna be 60?
Yeah.
I have to leave it for a few years.
Resources, events, parent-specific event to network, so getting parents together, which we did try last year. We should try that again. There was request for a curriculum review explanation. This parent said that they would like to see more events during the school day, not just full school events, but classroom events for families to interact with. So request for parents or family members being in the classroom setting. There were a couple more that I pulled tonight because I did have a few more responses from Friday's newsletter. There was a request for more family events geared towards older students, music events, healthy cooking classes for kids, LGBTQ awareness, activism, DEI focused events. So that came up a couple times. Math game nights again. I thought this was a neat one, Mystery Reader Day, inviting parents, grandparents, or other special people into the classroom to be mystery readers of a teacher-approved book. I used to do that at Hartford when I taught. That was pretty fun. And the last is my son just isn't interested in clubs or sports, but this parent would love to find something that encourages those kids to participate in something. So
D&D.
yeah.
I wonder if maybe the students that are in the restorative sessions can at some point maybe present to the community.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. The students that you're working with, Tracy.
They're middle schoolers at one time.
She said they're 6th, 7th, and 8th graders?
Yeah.
I think that would be, maybe they don't have to present to the community. Maybe they can present to the elementaries, because it sounds like they're middle schoolers, so they can present to the elementary, and maybe they can present to the high schoolers. I don't know, but I think that it's a way of showcasing what our students are doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think for more classroom parent engagement, if start doing things more using Google Meet.
Yeah.
And inviting parents,
Mm-hmm.
not, of course, not recording or anything like that, but just send out those particular invitations to parents to be able to, in the middle of the workday, kind of click in and enjoy a 30, 40-minute
and I think
activity.
I think they, maybe, I'm not sure, but I know their monthly assemblies at the K-5 level, parents are invited, but I think they let parents in, right? So you can see them, which is kind of cool. So you don't have to be present, you can be, you know, virtual.
Now, years ago, they would allow community members to come in and read to the elementary. Do they still allow that, or post-COVID?
No, is it happening again? Hasn't happened? It did pre-COVID.
Bridge,
Oh, it is happening at Albert Bridge. I just wonder if that probably can be expanded, and for, you know, and some folks can do a Zoom for kids in a classroom, and someone from the community who would be interested in reading, you know, someone elderly or something, and may not be able to get out the house as
They can do it virtually.
but they can do a virtual presentation to the kids.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Getting the community involved.
So there's some great ideas. I'm going to take them to the administrative teams and share them out as well. So some of them are more, not really, the board can't create them, but the administrators can. Okay, before I present the February question of the month, I want to talk about the calendar, because my question relates to the calendar if the board approves it. I'm bringing it back tonight, and later, hopefully, we can act on approving it. So last month, we talked about it, and Bill had mentioned that there's feedback from the community on the difficulty of early release days. So I did some digging. I talked to Angie because there are currently 8 early release days in the calendar for next year, proposed for next year. 4 of those are curriculum related. So 4 of those are really planned and facilitated by curriculum instruction and assessment department. 2 of the 4, what we've been using them for, a little bit last year and this year, we're doing deep data dives with our STAR data. So they're coordinated with when those assessment results come in, and it gives teams of teachers time to dig into those results, make some plans for addressing the results and setting some goals around them. So that's October and I believe February.
They coincide with
Yeah.
the STAR
Yeah.
assessment in, what do you call it? When we give it.
Window, when the
Window,
kids-
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
So those are used that way. The other 2 are used for curriculum work, and it's really, there's some contract language which we have to follow. We can't present new learning on those early release days, but we can continue with things that we've been working on. So curriculum implementation, curriculum mapping. I know Angie's been doing some proficiency work with some grade levels. So
There's no specific contract language around that. It's in the interpretation of the NEA.
yes,
But there is a particular language which there is a slight amount of input.
Yeah.
But,
we've had lengthy discussions with our union leadership around
right,
what that means.
Yes. I just
So-
didn't want
Yeah.
the perception to be out there that the contract says, no, we can't have
Right.
that during that time.
How many early release did we have this year, or do we have this year?
I think the same amount. There's a thread was 4, 2 for parent.
4 for curriculum work, 2 data, 2 for curriculum,
So it's the
curriculum
same.
breakdown.
This would not
It's the
change.
same.
Well,
Yeah.
the 4 for curriculum. So there are an additional 4 in the contract. 2 of those come before the Friday parent-teacher conference day, and that allows teachers to provide families with opportunities for conferences in the evening. So they get out early on Thursday, they do conferences into the evening, finish them up Friday. Some teachers, I mean, it's a mix. Some teachers do conferences a few each night all week long, because it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to parents and students about their progress, but it is exhausting. I'm not gonna lie, I did it for 23 years, especially when you have a large roster of students. So the union, we met with the union leadership around this. They would like to keep those as is for now. And then the other 2 early release days, one comes before the December break, and one comes on the last day of school. The staff we talked to for a while about those days, because there's an impact on families, right? So they really felt strongly that those times there aren't many of those times during the year for staff to come together to collaborate for team time and for wellness. And some of it's gathering together and being together and enjoying each other's company and kind of, there were comments about, from the staff that those 2 days in particular, the day before the December break and the day, the last day of school, they're pretty emotionally charged days for students. And so often it's can be beneficial for students to only have to be in school half day on those days.
At the same time, there's no research that shows.
Right, that's just a staff perception. I did do a little digging, just in this region about how other schools do it. All the schools that responded in the southeast region, I'm in a superintendent group, they all have the last day of school as an early release day. I would say half of the people that responded had the day before the holiday break as an early release day as well. And that's just information for you while you think about what we do with our calendar. I know that what I would like to propose as the question of the month for February really looks at this. I want to click on it and show it to you because I want your insight on it. For the future, So let me share this tab instead. Okay. So I just do a little intro. Early release time is used for several different purposes throughout the school year. For majority of the time, it's used for professional development for staff. Well, that's not actually a majority, but half the time I should change that. At conference times, early release time allows staff to meet with parents during afternoon and evening hours. We would like to gather some information on the impact of early release times on our families. So Angie and I actually Angie helped me with this, crafting it. Early release days have no impact, are a challenge. So we do want to know how challenging these days are for families. If you answered our challenge for our family, please share what your challenge is. Then it takes you, I think that it'll go, if it has no impact, the survey's over. If they're a challenge for your family, you answer some follow-up questions. Which day of the week for an early release day has the least impact on your family? Do you prefer that early release days happen before a long weekend or a break? So trying to gather some information. How does that sound?
Well, one thing that seems to be missing is the impact on students.
Yes.
How do families feel it impacts students? Because
Okay.
really what we're looking at is, again, the contract is 175 days.
Yeah.
But we only have 171 because we have 8 early release days, so that you lose 4 full days of instruction, as well as interrupting the schedule of lunch and schedule of that security for students.
Yep.
For some families, and I mean, for some students, the school is the one secure place. It's the one safe place so early release tend to be emotionally charged, as well as the day before Christmas.
Can I, it's not really a half day, it's about a third of a day. So it's about 2.5 hours, 12 to 2:30. So early release happens at 12. So students are in school from 7:45 to 12. So it's more like 2/3 of the day happens.
Could you ask parents
Yeah.
what they would like to see if the option is open for the, as Angie just mentioned, 2.5 hours, is it?
Yes,
That
2.5 hours.
What would they like to see happen for those 2.5 hours? I mean, maybe that's too specific. That kids are being let out early. I mean, I just wonder if maybe the parents can also chime in on, okay, maybe we can find a compromise here. Something that would expose the children, keep them engaged, but not necessarily in the classroom. I don't know. I don't know if the teachers, I don't know if you would even require all of the teachers to be part of whatever it is that can look like. I really don't know.
Well, whenever there's some sort of staff training or staff goal, for that time, it usually is much more productive in smaller groups. I have never found whole school staff development to be particularly productive. One, teachers can hide attention-wise, and 2, it often, not always, ends up being your lowest level of instruction. You have a group of people in a room listening to someone talk.
I would agree with you, and we've made every effort to differentiate for those early release days so that our staff get the most out of them. This year, the new addition to our schedule was support staff training offered on those early release days. We're probably doing that better than we've ever done it before. We're not perfect by far.
Yeah.
We've offered speakers, but there's still a large group of people in the room, and to differentiate that, that's a long-term goal to get that, but Bill's absolutely right in that
Go back here.
one size fits all professional development doesn't work.
You don't have to do a one size fits all. I'm not talking about having.
No, what I think what Angie's saying is it's a long-term goal to move away from that.
Yes.
Someone I think is.
Beth,
I can't see who had their hand up.
Yeah, I guess
go ahead.
my question that I'm having, I guess, is like, what's the alternative? Because my understanding is that we're obligated to have those days as off. Like, are you saying that we would instead do an early release day every Wednesday for an hour early, so throughout the year or something I guess I'm not understanding what the debate is, if these are required times.
Yeah, there is no obligation to have early release days.
No.
There's no contractual obligation to it at all. It is something that has kind of crept up in our calendars because one of the need to meet with staff, and two, it's a way that administrations have found getting around your daily requirement of 175 days, finding more time without it being in the contract. And it really is, talking to parents, and one of my goals is to wean this SU off of early release days and come up with better ways to accomplish what needs to be done.
So one idea, Bill and I have chatted, we would love to negotiate more professional development days in our contract. We have 5 days total to work with staff, right, Angie? 5. And it's all spelled out in the contract. So if we wanna, the time is still necessary. So when you do an early release day, it counts as a full student day. So I think that's why sometimes they're put in place. But instead of 2 half days, a full day of professional development would be, I think, would better serve us. But that has to be negotiated
Negotiated and budgeted for.
and budgeted for, yeah.
At the same time, one of the things we talked about, and one of the ideas I had to sort of keep this on the front burners is to, move into giving 2 full days for parent conferences in November, sort of recognizing that is the heaviest lifting. Of course, it would require to have another school day, but giving teachers that time. Another option down the line would be to be able to fit in more release time for new teachers, because there's more
They need
things that they need, especially for brand new teachers, and classroom management and just programs in general. Possibility exists is, in that day, half day in November, is make that a full day, and if within the negotiations we can get more time in the contract for new teacher training, that's one place it could go.
Mhm.
And so, I'm not suggesting in any way that we force teachers to schedule conferences. It's just a time for them to take a breather and take an emotional rest, especially for those who are willing to meet parents in the afternoons and early mornings when parents are available. They have that time to work on other things for those 2 days instead of a day and a half. And the other idea I had was to make the day before Christmas a full day, just because I always found it annoying a day in which I really enjoy spending with students and celebrating and having other things, to have that a full day.
The 24th?
It seems like any changes we would want to make does not actually seem like we could put them in effect for next school year. Because if we're talking about budget, and we're talking about budgeting for more PD and needing to amend, change contracts, that seems like there's no point of really, we can't do that next year.
No, the two days that I'm speaking of wouldn't involve any contract changes, and it wouldn't involve any extra budgeting.
Which 2 days? You're just saying the day before Christmas?
And the half day for November conferences.
and making it a full day.
Full day off, yes.
It would add another student day to the calendar at the end of the year,
What's doing before Christmas are you talking about?
before the break, Nancy,
Like the 20th?
the 20th, yeah.
I hear Christine when she was saying it's really important to the teachers and the morale, so that would be my concern. I hear it like the students, but if this is really important to the teachers,
It's important to some teachers, but it's not important to all. And that
Well,
was.
just like it's important to some families, it's not important to all. So, I mean, you're never going to get all.
Right, you're not gonna- and some comments of a Weathersfield teacher talking about, how disruptive it is for families and students to have a day cut short. My purpose is not to, my focus is not to get rid of early release days for next year. My purpose is to do at least something to keep it on the minds of administration, teachers, and the board, in that the long-term goal, I feel, should be.
Long-term goals are goals you want to.
Siri has it.
Yeah, long-term goal to eliminate all early release days.
Yeah.
And so that they're just not a thing that we expect. And our teachers and students have a consistent schedule. A day of school is a day of school. And we come up with ways, and it may cost us, more in substitute pay. It may cost us more in voluntary PD, and then be able to pay per diem for those teachers to come in. But setting up the calendar is setting up the calendar. So I'd like some movement on this, just to keep it in the forefront that this is something that I feel, and I've heard a lot of parents say that it should not be the first and only solution to needed time.
But I think that's why, Megan mentioned, okay, we've gotten word, we've heard from the teachers, we've heard from some parents. I think put it out to
Yeah,
the public
and
and
to the
ask,
teachers
and
as
this
well.
way we get a sense from other parents on, well, what other options are there? What's on your mind? Because then we can maybe look at all of those suggestions and come up with, maybe this can work.
And I
Because maybe there is a way of putting closure, using that last day as closure, half a day for the teachers and half a day for something else that could be created, that could engage the community, that could involve other parents. And as Bill said, we may have to pay a little bit, maybe not. Maybe you have enough folks that will step up. It doesn't have to be teachers that will say, we'll participate in contributing our, volunteering our time to put closure, to help students put closure on school.
So, and talking to Christine, one thing I wanted to do is, of course, to bring these ideas to the board and get your input. And the fact that I tend to be a little bit of a hard ass when dealing with things. Be like, we can do this. There's no contractual stopping. But should we push it a little bit this year and remove 1 or 2 early release days? Or should we keep it in the, not push it this late in the game, with the understanding that this is something we're gonna work towards in future years,
Christine,
to eliminate early release days?
could that be a question on what is,
I don't think,
which would work better, a full day or a half day off?
I'm not sure we have time. I think we need to approve.
And I know, but just to get
gather
Oh,
information
yes.
for, yeah.
the sense of the
What's easier?
community,
Mhm. I
is
can
a
add
half day more difficult or is a full day more difficult?
Yep. And I could create a survey for the staff as well. This feels right. We haven't heard from all of them. And maybe some have different opinions. So we meet monthly with the,
Some staff are parents.
yeah, some staff are parents, that's true.
So,
So I can do that and bring back information, but you're right, it's not gonna be helpful in this calendar adoption. But it will be, I think, moving forward. But the board gets to decide that. At the, motion time at the end of the meeting. So let me just capture that as a half day or a full day, easier, right? On
And
families,
some
something like
teachers
that.
I think that's what you
might
said.
find that a shorter period of time for professional is
Yeah.
better for them than a full day. Sometimes a full day is really a long time.
That's true.
So, I think you need staff to,
To weigh in as well.
Also, like I hear you when you say that it could increase the amount of substitutes, needed and that sort of thing. And how does that affect a student having, is that the same as having a half a day, are they
Right.
getting the same instruction?
Yep.
Are we, I understand what you're saying, let's build the structure and figure it out, but I just wonder what impact that can have on a student too.
I mean, that's just one necessary option.
Yeah.
One idea kicked around would be the fact that you could plan district-wide a single grade level to release them and then create a really enjoyable activity for the students. They explore the woods, so forth and so on. It's something in which that could be memorable and different for them instead of going home. The other interesting thing is the fact that at Hartford, K-8, they have 8 early release days. High school, they have 2. Probably for obvious reasons, because I'm not real comfortable with setting high school students loose. 'Cause I know what I would do when I was a high school student if I had free time.
Very few.
We have tried the model of releasing staff in grade level bands for like half a day, right? So all the first grade teachers come together and they do curriculum work. But we have been so strapped for substitutes that we haven't been able to do that for a while, but it is an effective way. I mean,
Right.
So,
I was thinking, as you were sharing that, I was thinking of the intensives that go on in the school. I mean, that's such a beautiful project.
oh, the March intensives?
March
Yeah.
intensives, that kids are able
Yeah.
to explore places and spaces
Yep.
that they don't normally explore.
Pretty awesome.
And you end up getting a lot of volunteers, to hit those up. But yeah, I also think that a positive experience is so much more powerful than just like, bye.
Okay, let me move on. Bill, I think you requested this, behavior reporting information, do you recall?
Mhm.
Pretty sure you did. So we did look into it, per state requirements, schools report all incidents that result in suspension, expulsion, as well as all HHB complaints and incidents involving violent crimes and weapons possessions use. And we do send out the reporting guidance from the state to the schools annually. That comes out from Ryan, I believe. And does that answer the question?
Kind of.
Okay.
I think what schools really need is more clarity.
On what to report?
Because the reporting a state reported incidents, that the state insists if there is violence in any way, it's supposed to be included. And I know the elementary schools tend to shy away from reporting those. The other issue is to make sure that for federal civil rights data, that information is incorporated in the federal civil rights reporting software that you use, if you use software. That's one of my struggles, is getting them to put that in the right place, so I don't have to manually count the seclusion and restraint data and break down manually race, ethnicity,
Oh, got it. Yeah, okay. Brittany's on. Brittany, do you know the answer to that? Or she was on, maybe she's gone.
No, yeah, I'm here. Well, so what I know is what Christine shared, which came directly from the state's website. I also know that next year some of this will be slightly moot because of the way that they're going to ask us to report through Power School, which I think will provide a lot more accurate information to the state, and it'll just be more consistent. So Ryan has been working on that. I mean, it's a slow process as the state, transfers over into reporting incidents for these kinds of things. So I guess I would need to understand a little bit more about, because I other than reporting myself as the assistant principal, I really don't have a ton to do with the state reporting for behavior right now. So I guess I'd just be interested to learn a little bit more about what sort of trainings are offered by the state to make sure that all the schools are interpreting the information that the state's providing in the same way, because it seems like there's very little on their website and the guidance that they provide in terms of how to report and what to report. Does that sound right, Bill? I mean, or do you have additional information?
Yeah, no, they're pretty clear on if you ask them. The write-up is pretty murky in some areas. What does this mean? What does that mean? They just need more guidance. And they've been talking about providing more for the last decade.
That sounds right.
The guidance on what is restraint in seclusion is pretty clear on what you had to for 4,500, which that paper copy they're not using anymore.
Right.
But still, is that data available? Because I can't get any of that data of who filled out 4,500 because or who input into the state. That's not available to anybody. And for those who have to,
once it's inputted,
for those of us who have to break that data down for federal civil rights reporting, it makes it frustrating because that's a whole section.
Yeah, I agree. And I know Katie is very on top of the Rule 4500 paperwork and making sure that the staff know when to fill that out, how to fill that out. And she collects all of that information. So I do know in terms of 4500, she's very, very on top of that. And maybe she can talk a little bit more about that piece.
She is on. Katie, are you here?
I am.
You want anything to add?
I think this year the state has required principals to record. So each building has to report on 4500s. I don't know how that data is going to be disseminated. But this was the first year. We just did it mid-year. And building wide, we now use a Google form to get ours. If they are not ones that have to be reported to the state. So we'll be able to aggregate some of that data in different ways because now we have it in a spreadsheet form and it's easier to access. But again, I'm curious to see what the state will be doing, and that's being looked at pretty closely. There's a committee working on that. So giving feedback and just on 4500 in general of our use of it. So, but there is a lot of data there. We have such small numbers of 4500s. It's hard to pull much from. Last year we had less than 10. So it's and some of those being, maybe a same student or whatnot. So we don't pull a lot of information from it, but it is information that could be aggregated compared to a larger group of students statewide. And I think that's why they're looking at it. I don't know if that answers your question, Bill, but it's underused data, but it also could be data that isn't particularly useful because of the sample size.
I mean, my frustration and what my hope is that the federal civil rights reporting is It's supposed to be every other year, but it's gonna be 3 years in a row, just to make up for the year that was missed for COVID.
Mhm.
When I heard that, I was like, I just did this.
Because you have to do it, right? Yeah.
Is there a policy that the superintendent should be informing the board of how many students? I don't know if that's the form that you were talking.
I have to report how many staff are trained in each building.
Not staff, it's how many
Rule 4500s?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's in policy. Looking at my work plan, I know I have to report, just it's on Katie, it's on our list.
I
We have to-
believe it is in our policy, Christine, or we put it in our procedures. It's a minimum of procedures, if not policy, because actually I brought that up at a state meeting, being we're one of the few people that do report to the board.
To the board?
Yeah.
Is that the number of restraints and how, and who is trained in each building?
We said we would report a number of trained and then number of restraints. We have done SU wide because by building it's too identifiable. But we did last year and we'll continue to do so.
It's in Katie's report whenever that is scheduled, towards the end of the year.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, thank you, Kate.
Okay, let me just see. Just a couple of other quick updates before Larry gives his financial quarterly report. You may all know this already. We have adopted all our local budgets. They are all increased. They've all increased significantly. And across the board, that was when the CLA was applied. So all the CLAs have dropped in all our communities, and that is impacting the tax rate. So we're working. I mean, there's things coming out regularly on this new formula. So I'll keep you posted. The other thing, we are in the middle of teacher negotiations. I haven't been in negotiations here before, but I've been in negotiations a lot in my previous roles, and I have to say we're taking our time. It's going really well, and it's been really collaborative, and I have to thank Bill, who's done a really great job, and Heather and Vincent are the board members who are part of that committee, and we will bring you information as we can. But so far, so good.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to some more difficult parts coming down the line, but it is night and day in the other two negotiations I've participated in.
It's been good. We have food, we have cookies.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I do want to say that I heard from someone from Weathersfield regarding their budget. I think they had a meeting last week.
They did.
And
Yep.
they felt, they weren't happy, but they felt good with what they were hearing. They were
understood,
getting
yeah.
explanation. I
Good.
mean, people were put in an effort to help them understand
Yes,
what's going on. So
that's
I
good.
just want to
That's
give
good
you
to
some
hear,
feedback on that. It was positive. I was like, oh, okay, that's good to know.
It's super complicated.
Yeah.
So, and
In the meeting that Christine and I had with the Weathersfield
town manager.
town manager, it really sort of opened a lot of different things that we as a board should work on with the town managers, because their point is when people have questions and concerns about their taxes, the town manager is the one they go to. And so keeping the town managers informed on what's going on, how things work is really important, because they were honestly concerned, and they really didn't have a firm understanding on how education funding works in Vermont.
It was good. It was a good meeting.
Yeah, it was a good meeting, and so I was able to communicate some things, and they were eager to learn, and I think it was great. It's just, we need more outreach, we need more communication with the people that taxpayers are going to. Colleen?
Thanks. I did it again just so I wouldn't forget, and I don't think I've forgotten what I was going to ask. The local, you were saying, Christine, that you were hearing a lot about what the CLA the response has been to CLA. Are you getting any kind of sense that they may make any changes before town meeting time?
I don't know.
Was it today we got the letter?
Friday, we got a letter, which basically said that that's the way I interpreted it, any community that is benefiting from the tax cap, the 5% tax cap pre-CLA, their budget will be under review.
It was very fuzzy. It
Yeah.
was more like, this may not have been a good idea, even though.
It wasn't our idea.
Yeah, it wasn't our.
It wasn't our idea.
Yeah.
The intent of Act 127 is good and valid, but right.
I think that the current concern is, of course, is that if every school raises their budget 9.99%, then it's all capped at then 5%. Where's that money going to come from?
Yeah.
And so the letter was rather threatening. It's kind of like, don't pad your budgets, or where are we looking over your shoulder?
Oh,
Yeah, because remember what Ed said, and Heartland was over the 10%, so had to reduce some things. The other two communities weren't, districts weren't. But your tax rate, the way I understand it, if it's, if your per student increase is 2%, you can add additional funding up to 9.9%, and your tax rate's going to stay the same, right? So the message was, don't do that. Don't add things to your budget just because you can do that, right? That's not what the intent of the legislation. So I don't have an answer, Colleen. I don't know. It's still they're taking testimony on Thursday in the legislature about this. From 1 to 3, I think it's public. So if you wanted to zoom in, you probably could and see what's
that's it. I was just interested in.
Yeah.
If the rumblings
My guess is that the roller coaster ride isn't over yet.
I don't think it's over yet either. And things could change after our budget's passed, right, in March. So who knows? Okay. With that note, Larry, you want to go over the quarterlies real quick?
Yeah, I sent them out. They've been on the board for a while. It's the second quarter, again, still early on the revenue side. So the main thing to pay attention to is expenditures, and with the encumbrances we built in, we feel
here.
like things are right on line. Things will be much more focused as we get to the third quarter. As things that's when you start seeing the difference between the revenue and the expenditures. So nothing crazy surprising. We feel good about where things are.
All right. Thanks, Larry. All right, that's the end of the report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. Just unshare my screen. Back to you, Bill.
Okay. Before we get into policy, I'd like to have a brief informal discussion on the calendar. And I'd like to hear from all members if they feel that this year is the time to, we have the option to remove some early release days, or would you prefer to keep this on the front burner for next year, and trying to be able to create solutions for the longer term. And so anybody online, I would like to hear from all of you, even if it's just a couple words.
What's the question again?
I have put forth that 2 days to remove, as options to remove the early release dates and do something else. The day, making the early release in November, just a full day for conferences instead of early release. And the day before Christmas, make that a full day. And so my question to all of you is that something you're interested in doing? Or would you prefer to wait for next year to have more planning and give administration more time to come up with solutions? So this is kind of an
What would you
informal.
like us to do, Christine?
I would appreciate the time to survey the staff, to survey the community, and bring back the information. Knowing, full well knowing the goal, I think time to do it properly would be appreciated.
Anne Marie?
As a parent who's been annoyed by the half day, I still kind of agree that they need more time to sort of figure it out what they're going to do with the time. I don't want to just sort of force it on them. I think giving them a mandate to get it done for next year's approval would be better than trying to force it through this year.
That?
Yeah, I also agree. I mean, I think it's the whole no decision about me without me, kind of thing. And so it doesn't sound like we have any teacher voice in this right now. And it sounds like we have loud parent voices, and loud teacher voices are really what we're hearing. I'm not feeling like we have a majority of voices heard right now. And I would say, like in my district right now, we have early release day once a week. And so our students are released an hour early every Thursday. And then we have 2 hours of PD every Thursday, along with full days of PD and days off for parent teacher conferences. I'll tell you, as an educator, I don't love it. It's not, maybe it could be facilitated differently, but it's not my favorite.
Thank you, Beth. Mark?
Yeah, let Christine take the time she needs. I don't really have any strong feelings one way or the other, but it sounds like that taking the time to do it next year is appropriate.
Jamie? I don't see you up there, but I saw you earlier.
I agree that I think taking the time is probably the best option.
Thank you. Anyone else online I'm missing? I don't think so.
Colleen Spence.
Yeah, Colleen was first. Okay. Megan?
I would like to take the time.
Okay. Rebecca?
I would like to give Christine the time to.
Nancy?
I'd like to hear what the parents say on this, because there's some
Survey.
parents or teachers too, on the survey.
Okay, so I would like to take a motion to approve the calendar as it is drafted now.
So, second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
My only question is that on this February 7th, there's a note double checking.
Yeah.
Like, is that?
No,
I
we
was just-
didn't.
We double checked,
Okay,
yeah.
I was just curious if there was a change to that.
No.
We just wanted to make sure it was not too close to the star window.
Mhm.
So
So we could do the data dive, but yes, yeah, Angie did
it's
confirm
good.
that.
It can't be earlier than that, but we do want to do it the next week.
Okay. Colleen, how do you vote?
On the calendar.
On the calendar.
She just put her thumb up.
Okay. Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well.
Thank you very much. Okay. And thank you for the time, and I'll bring back some information.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
it was just the first hearing of it.
Well, in my opinion, if you don't push somewhere,
Yeah.
no one pays attention.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
I appreciate
And
it.
it's good to.
B20, personal recruitment, selection, appointment, and background checks. I feel, because I had this up, this is in pretty good shape. The question is this it? Yeah. Some of the optional pieces. The highlighted first option, the Mr. Southeast Supervisor and School District will ensure that employees receive training in non-discrimination, bias, and anti-racism. My personal feeling is that we have that covered in so many other areas. I'm not sure it's really needed here. But that's my personal opinion. I have no objections to having that in there.
Okay, would require time. We're just talking about professional development. We don't like it is embedded, but we don't give specific training.
Right.
Tracy did a little bit of bias training with the interview committee on the principal search. So I would love Tracy's opinion on this one, actually, if she feels it's really important for all staff to have some of that non-discrimination, bias, and anti-racism training. What is your thinking, Tracy?
I mean, yes, I think ideally, yes, everybody has some training at some point.
Yeah. At the same time, though, I think it should probably be in a separate policy.
Okay.
And to be able to take the time and organize it, and plan it, and word it much better than it's worded here. Be more specific.
Yep.
That would be my opinion. The other piece is to prospective employees or the school district will pay for background checks. What was the past practice?
We do. So actually, if you don't mind, Larry, Tracy, Tina, and I met Friday. We went through this policy.
Yeah.
There are a couple little things that we would recommend.
Okay.
When the time is right, you let me know and I'll share those.
Yeah, no,
the
time is right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So under recruitment, so we would love for that training to happen, but again, being mindful and planning when that's going to happen. I think it may be more appropriate in the anti-racism policy or the equity policy.
Yes.
So, so if you go to the recruitment section, we, under number 1, the board seeks to strengthen recruitment of, we want that to say all staff instead of just educators. Because we're not just recruiting educators, we're recruiting our maintenance staff, our kitchen workers, so if that's okay, all staff. When you get to number 4, under recruitment, we propose that after the first part, I'll read it. After the initial written or electronic application process is complete, applicants selected for an interview will be required to provide a statement identifying any criminal charges. We would say put a period there, cross out the next line and a half through the word charge, so brought against the applicant, including the date of each charge, the court where the charge was filed, and the disposition of the charge. We would say take that out because in the application process in School Spring, they have to tell you, but they don't have to give you all those details in that. So that would be an additional thing we would have to figure out. The statement shall also include a warning to the applicant in, we were going to look at, we don't know if it's in bold print in School Spring, which is where most of our applications come in. Do you know, Bill? It's there, but I don't know if it's in bold print. So we were going to check.
It's there.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's in bold print. Yeah.
So we can find that out and take the word bold out if it's not. Those were the 2 recommended changes for recruitment. When we get down to selection, where that where it says choose, so the school district does pay. The cost of such checks will be borne by the school district. Yep, it's $35 for the prints, and then Tina said 13 or 16. She couldn't remember for the report, so we do pay for that.
I was wondering because I don't remember any mention of that in the contract.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay.
It is in Tammy's contract. So.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Maybe we have to think about that more.
Well,
we're paying for it now.
Yeah, we're paying for that. So.
Okay.
Past practice. I would prefer to stick with past practice.
On the next, number 2, under selection, when you get to request, this is like, I think the second sentence, requests will be made for fingerprint-supported criminal records from the FBI as well as criminal records from the state of Vermont and any state with Vermont reciprocity. So if we don't have reciprocity, we don't get that information. So we would recommend crossing out in which the superintendent knows the applicant has resided or been employed. Okay. Number 3, Tina does that. Under number 5. No, I just underlined, no changes for number 5. Under appointment, we wanted to change on number 5, instead of employees, teaching staff, because it's the teachers who are on the probationary period, not all employees, if that makes sense.
Which 5?
Yeah, under appointment, number 5, instead of the word employees, teaching staff.
Right, because that law only,
Mhm.
that only applies to
Yeah.
certified staff.
Correct. The other thing under number 1, sorry, I skipped it because I couldn't remember what we said, but the appointment of licensed employees will be made by the board subject to the nomination of candidates by the superintendent of schools. I mean, a lot of times that's the principal that brings you those new hires.
Yes.
So we could change that superintendent or principal or,
Yes.
yeah, okay,
Let's do superintendent.
okay. That makes sense. And then I think that was it. Tracy, Larry, does that?
There's one past practice, and this was David's past practice,
Yep.
in which in the summer,
Yes. He would be given the authority to hire.
Right.
Yeah.
do we want that in this policy?
If
Just
you-
sort of lay out the steps that,
Yeah, then you wouldn't have to vote on it every summer, right?
not so much to vote on it, but it's not so much removing the vote, but either create a different process. For example, it used to be that David would contact the board chairs.
Okay.
Or, and I'm not in any way
Yep.
suggesting that, but if we want to keep it, that
Yep.
we would give you in a vote, we should
Mhm.
probably lay that out in the policy.
Okay.
That
Where would you put it? Under a different section or under?
in the appointment.
Appointment, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll work on some language and share it with you.
Yeah.
That works.
Okay.
Okay. This is just the second read anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'll be.
That,
Okay, yeah, I just don't.
So I would just advocate for keeping the DEI line in. And I think, I mean, what's the harm, I guess, is putting it in and making sure that it is in our other policy as well. But it just doesn't seem like, why not hold our feet to the fire as many times as possible for these types of things?
I would agree with Beth. I just went back to that. And I thought about a couple of things. When I was, Tammy probably, they do that. But there were certain, policies that staff was required.
Yeah.
I mean, and so this, I don't know if this one was one of them, but I don't know if you either received the training or you had to make sure that you went over the training and you needed to sign a form
Yep.
stating that you did receive the training and you went by a certain date. This way, the onus was on the staff member
Yep.
or employee to make sure that they were familiar with that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I think that though,
We do that we have some mandatory trainings, child abuse, bloodborne pathogens, those types of things that staff are responsible for.
we do that in video.
We do it in video, yeah, and they sign off on it. So we
Okay.
could add potentially, Tracy, that'll go on our list. I'll put it on our list. I don't know.
because I remember doing that with a couple of our policies and, you would pick a date and you would go with other staff members but yeah, you would pick a date that would work with your schedule.
I would think at a minimum to create some sort of video,
Yeah.
just outlining what our policies are for staff.
There are a couple of them we need to do that for.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Beth. Is that everything?
Yeah, that's what we went through, yeah.
Okay. C4, English learners, second reading. I have no,
Yeah, I don't have any.
yeah, this is basically lays out
Mhm.
the law.
Clearly, yeah.
It's all required. It's basically one big definition
Yep.
of what an English learner is.
Yeah, I think it's pretty explicit.
Just, I don't know, are you guys experiencing the same English learning boom as Hartford or not?
We've had a few. We've had,
Not to the extent, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Congress will open to train to Brazil. Just
So-
incredible.
Considering that, what was it, 3 years ago? I didn't have an
Any.
English language learner, and now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
we just have 2 new ones.
2 new ones.
Yeah.
So they
Last
increased from 6 to 8.
Yeah.
19.
That's a reasonable
Oh, yeah,
percentage
19.
still.
Wow.
But I remember the
No, I included the 2 we
conversation.
got last week.
Wow.
19. I remember the conversation here we were having and we didn't. And suddenly you have this, yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Is there
think
a
it's
specific language that you're?
No,
Portugal.
Portugal.
not for us.
Not for us, no. But we do have a ELL teacher, which is wonderful.
We do.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to have our ELL teacher.
And Julie, I just have a question. So like in this, it says like, after school or extracurricular activities, school program and two, like, does that teacher go with this? Like, do we have a mechanism for that piece of it, like extracurricular?
It has not come up
Okay.
at this time.
I think that the basic rule is that something needs to be in place so that student is not excluded from that after-school program because of the language barrier. It doesn't necessarily mean that we would have to, have a translator with them or so forth, but it could be as simple as the staff training or electronic translation, but
We do have devices for our new students who just arrived, that are translation devices, which is really helpful.
That's great.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, is it like a little phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a smaller pocket device, that works with the translating. So, yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, fortunate to have those.
Yeah. They're not super expensive either, so it's great.
I probably, we want to vote on C4 English learners tonight.
You can.
I don't think we'll make it.
I probably won't make any changes to it. Yeah, you
No.
certainly can.
So I'll take a motion for, policies, what?
I was giving Megan a chance to. Me too.
Okay. I'll take a motion to, pass C4 English learners policy.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any further discussion? I'll start here. Megan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Nancy? Colleen?
Aye.
Beth?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Am I missing anybody? That's a good. I mean, 9, we do have 9, okay. Thank you, so that is so passed. I will take a motion, because it is our third read, and we can retract the motion to pass C42 school entrance age.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion on this?
I think we made the changes that we talked about last time.
Yes.
So it should be good to go.
We have, I believe this is actually the 4th reading. I think we put it off at one point,
Maybe.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like to
The change is good.
thank Katie for or work on this as well.
Yeah.
As there's no discussion, Colleen? How do you vote?
Oh, did,
I,
Beth?
Aye.
Anne Marie?
Aye.
Jamie?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Rebecca?
aye,
Nancy?
aye.
And I'm an aye.
Nice. Okay.
So that finishes our policy. Setting the next agenda.
Nice job.
I've got admin report, Tracy's report, my report. Brittany will be doing a data report in February. That's on the schedule. We have a third reading of the personal recruitment, selection, appointment, and background check policy. And then the local wellness team, the WSESU, whole school, whole child, whole community, has been looking over and revising the local wellness policy that needs to be adopted by the end of the year. There's a lot of pieces to it. We put a hold on it. We had the first reading, so they'll be ready to bring back recommendations for the second reading in February. And those are the only two I have on here, which is
Right. So that means we will have personal recruitment.
Yep.
Selection and that one, I think.
Yep.
That's such a big one to keep it just to have these two.
okay.
And it's February
26th
or 29th for a budget meeting?
29th for your budget meeting Thursday at room 210. Dinner will be served at 5:15 in the dining hall, and then we'll go upstairs to 210 at 6 for the presentation. We have a moderator. Kate Williams has agreed to be the moderator. Davis is on top of getting Windsor on air there. I'm in charge of making sure the food and the technology is ready, and I think it should go quite smoothly, actually. So a good plan. Larry's been working with us as well. He'll have the ballots, right? With the warnings
Yeah.
at the end of the
When I
month.
get
Yeah,
on,
draft ballots.
when I get the candidates.
Yep.
They create the ballot, and then the warning is up.
The warning's up already. Yep.
And we'll make sure it runs in the paper because we're a union district and not Scotty. And get those forms into me January 29th.
By the 29th, for anybody who's
From Mount
running.
Scotty School
Yep.
District.
Yeah, so that's the 29th. So it'll be a busy week.
Will you be ready as part of your admin report to talk about retirements?
Yes. We'll bring
Not necessarily, we don't need to necessarily announce who's retirement unless you'd like to.
Do you want them at the SU level, or do you want them at the local board meetings?
I really, I think the discussion of the retirement, but I'd like to, at this level,
No, who's
talk
retiring.
about the advertising for new positions, not just retiring, but
Okay, so I was putting that in the Mount Scottney report next, because I think it came up at the Mount Scottney meeting, but I can move it to the SU level meeting if you prefer.
I think we do both. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we need to talk about numbers of who's retiring and how that affects the instruction at this level. But I'd like to talk about, have a quick discussions of what strategies we might have to improve hiring and advertising and so forth.
Okay.
Wasn't that discussed at the, was it Kate that mentioned the idea of collaborating with other districts, because it looks like other districts are also looking at, or maybe Bill, you brought that up, it's looking at how do we do this differently in addition to the way that we're doing it.
Yeah, and that's part of I mean, we just started meeting, Larry, myself, Tina. Tina has a lot to do with hiring.
Right.
And Tracy. And we've kind of started a document on the processes that we use and how we can make those better. And it's different when you're hiring support staff, when you're hiring teachers, when you're hiring administrators, it looks a little bit different. So we're working on that. We can bring you back what we've got. We do know we need to post early. We know I just sent Larry, there's an opportunity for a job fair at Middlebury High School coming up, so we're going to take advantage of that.
The other thing is like to hear an update on how the for school staff incorporating local students, high school seniors, creating those opportunities.
For them to come back and work for us.
Come back and work for us.
Yeah, that, yeah, I'm gonna put that on February.
I know Windsor High School has
that's
had a couple
February.
successes this year.
Yep.
Dothan Brook had a couple successes.
Oh, that's great.
One worrisome trend is Otter Preaching is a water type. It's not preaching this year. So it's just those when you empty out the upper elementary, those are some openings that are going to compete
with.
throughout
We're
the
all
entire-
competing for the same
we're all
pool.
competing for the same pool. So
Okay.
that's one worry that I have.
Yep.
Do you participate in any job fairs at the community college?
We participated last year. Larry and Tina, you did your own job fair here.
Yeah, it was at Winter School. We publicized it on social media.
Yep.
And it was in the spring.
Yeah.
How was it turn out?
Not great.
Yeah.
But we were shooting 50% because we had 2 people show up and one of them became an employee. So
Right.
Right.
Great.
So 50% is pretty good.
But only 2 people came.
Yeah, we I don't know. It was a very nice day.
Honestly, it was Saturday, I believe. Yeah.
Greg made a lot of cookies for nothing.
Yeah, to get out there,
No,
the fact that
I'm sure someone.
Well, I had a few.
and we have a decent, for the support staff, we have a decent educational funding base. And so I believe it's one UVM class.
Yeah.
Which translates to maybe even 4 community college classes, because of the cost, so.
Okay, so recruiting of high school students, how we're working on that, and the strategies for hiring and retention and available openings across the SU. Okay. Got
I
it.
mean, if you have a student who wants to take 2 classes a semester, the support staff would pretty much cover that.
That's true. So go to school while you work.
Right.
Yeah. Which works for some kids, some young
Yeah,
adults. Yep.
Granted, it's 12 credits a year.
Yep.
But it's still 12 credits a year.
Yep. Something to take advantage of,
And
right?
substitutes can be high school students, graduates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And we do get a lot of kids when they come back from college in the spring and on the breaks that sub for us.
Oh, that's smart. Oh, good.
Yep. Okay. I got that down.
No one wants to live at home. At high school.
Some kids need to.
I did.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know, Bill. It's only 8:13, so
I know.
you probably should keep talking. No, just
No.
kidding.
I motion to adjourn.
Do we have anything for executive session? I don't believe we do. There has been, I took a motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you, everybody, for
everybody.
listening.
Bye. This is good.
Oh, you're doing great.
Yeah, you got plenty, so I'm gonna.
Stop the recording.